Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we'll be talking about Holy Paladins in BFA. We'll be looking at some of the talent changes and some of the changes to the gameplay that I feel are really important or impacted Holy Paladin game style in the new expansion. First of all, there is no green screen, so this is actually what my room looks like. This is where the magic happens. But besides the lack of green screen, let's look at some Holy Paladin changes. So first of all, survivability. Survivability for Holy Paladins has been nerfed to some extent. First of all, a lot of the healers or a lot of the specs or classes in general will feel the loss of the artifact weapon. So the artifact weapon and the artifact traits like Knight of the Silver Hand, which kind of added to survivability of Holy Paladins in Legion, is gone. It's no longer there. The fact is that in Legion you gained 30% armor by having your artifact weapon. That's no longer there. Now in BFA you most likely will be running with the one-hander shield combo, and the shield will give you block, and block actually in BFA is being buffed, is being changed, is being adjusted. So all of a sudden block, or people or the classes specs that actually use shields are giving you a bigger advantage in BFA. Now block is being adjusted and altered all the time, so we'll see how it's going to pan out in the future, but it's something, it's a space that you should watch out for. Check out how block is going to change, check out how survivability for Holy Paladins and things like Resto Shamans might increase or might decrease. We'll have to see in the future, but you need to know about that. Also the fact that Righteousness, a passive spell, is no longer there. They used to increase your maximum HP by 15%, so all of a sudden Holy Paladins are no longer the healer who has the most survivability, who can take those big hits. It's no longer there. So this is in line with all of the other healer changes, like Resto Juice received nerfs to their bear form, received nerfs to their frenzy region. So it's kind of in line, and Blizzard is looking to balance out the survivability across the board, across all the healers. So it's something almost expected. It's not a crazy deal when you compare it to other healers as well. The biggest changes that happen to Holy Paladins, we have to look at Holy Shock and global cooldowns. So first of all, let's look at global cooldowns. And global cooldown, a lot of spells for certain classes have been added to global cooldown bracket. So basically they incur a 1.5 second or whatever penalty to using it. Now, Holy Paladin is one of those healers who probably receive the biggest changes, because all of a sudden your Wings, your Holy Avenger, your Aura Mastery is on a 1.5 second global cooldown. So when you are playing Legion, when you are chaining those cooldowns to use with your Aura Mastery, you can't really do that in BFA anymore, because it's legitimately going to take you 4, 5, 6 seconds to actually prepare for that. So that's one of the reasons why this video is going to be titled Slower Gameplay for Holy Paladins, because it is a slower gameplay. There's now all of a sudden you're paying more attention to what cooldowns you're going to use, because they just legitimately take longer to use. And the fact is that Aura of Sacrifice, so I can understand why Aura of Sacrifice has been changed or redesigned completely in BFA. Now it reduces damage taken by 30% for the people affected by your aura when you activate Aura Mastery, and some of that portion of that damage is going to come back to you. So depending on the damage reduced, there's a chance that the paladin who used the aura might die without external healing, without external cooldowns, without having bubble. There's a small chance of that. So that's kind of, it almost feels like Aura of Sacrifice is another version of Devotion Aura. Devotion Aura also reduces damage taken by the party affected by the aura, but it doesn't give you that damage back to you. So it seems like it's kind of high risk, high reward kind of deal happening here, but I can see why they did that, because global cooldown, because so many spells have been added to global cooldown, all of a sudden, imagine if Aura of Sacrifice was unchanged, because in Legion with Aura of Sacrifice, the second you use Aura of Sacrifice, you want to make sure your Holy Shock crits on the people who need healing. You want to make sure you optimize your next heals in order to splash back to everyone else affected by Aura. It was really hectic. You needed to really optimize. Now in BFA, you have this global cooldown on spells, and all of a sudden, if you use Aura of Sacrifice, it's a button that you just press and you don't really care about this, because the damage reduction is already there. It doesn't change your game style. Maybe you'll activate Aura of Sacrifice and you might heal yourself to try and prevent dying, or trying to prevent death, maybe. But that's about it. So all of a sudden I can see why Blizzard changes. Do I like this change? No. I preferred Aura of Sacrifice in Legion. Aura of Sacrifice was one of the most fun cooldowns for me, because it had a certain skill cap attached to it, and especially if you combine it with certain cooldowns, it was extremely fun to get crazy burst healing for the whole party. And that's gone in BFA. That's gone in BFA. That's one of the big changes. Another big change that I've seen is Holy Shock. Holy Shock crit. So in Legion, you know that crit was extremely important stat. You know that Holy Shock doubled your crit chance. So if you have 50% crit, all of a sudden your Holy Shock will crit all of the time. And why is that important? Holy Shock crits will give you Infusion of Light. Infusion of Light will make your Holy Light faster, or Flash of Light much stronger. Now the Flash of Light buff on the Infusion of Light in BFA has been somewhat reduced, but not to a crazy extent. So you still want that Infusion of Light proc. But the fact is, Holy Shock no longer doubles your crit in BFA. Instead, it gives you 30% baseline crit. 30%. It used to be lower. Blizzard has buffed it. It's funny to talk about all these changes because the fact is that there is still a lot of tuning to be done. Holy Paladins a couple of weeks ago were buffed. All of their spells were buffed. This week, some of the spells were nerfed. So tuning is still happening. Numbers are still being adjusted. That's something to keep in mind. But Holy Shock gives you 30% crit. You also have Azeroth traits like Divine Illumination, which give you additional 5% crit to your Holy Shock. You can have 3 Azeroth traits for your helm, shoulders, and chest. All of a sudden, through traits, you can have 15% crit. Through Holy Shock baseline, you can have 30. Best case scenario, you have 45% crit chance without taking in your secondaries. And now you need 55%. Now, reaching 55% crit, first of all, we have to ask ourselves, that's most likely going to be impossible, especially at the start of the expansion, where stats are going to be a bit lower, or at least it's going to be harder to get secondary stats. Also, we have to ask ourselves and look at Blizzard's Q&A, look at Blizzard's previous feedback. Blizzard does not want secondaries to be as important as they were in Legion, because as a Holy Paladin Legion, you could have a crit item, and you can have another item that's like 15 item levels higher but doesn't have crit, and you won't use that, because as a Holy Paladin you needed to reach that crit cap so bad. Blizzard has mentioned this in previous posts, in previous feedback, that they want the primary stat, they want the intellect to be the king. They want you, if you have a 5 item level upgrade item, you should use that no matter what secondary stats are provided, because intellect, they want intellect to be extremely strong. Let's say you won't need crit. So itemization, getting gear is going to be simplified to a very nice extent, because all of a sudden you just pick the gear that you want. You won't be, if you get an upgrade, it's an upgrade. You won't be praying for that crit rings, crit necks, or crit on every piece of gear. You won't be reliant on that, which is fun. It's not as annoying as gearing your Paladin Legion. Now, the negative aspect of that, you won't get a 100% guaranteed Infusion of Light proc from Holy Shock, because Holy Shock won't have 100% crit. So that cap won't be reached. All of a sudden your Holy Paladin feels a bit more RNG. Every time you Holy Shock, you're kind of like, okay, there was no Infusion of Light. I can't cast that Holy Light, because Holy Light under Infusion is going to be much faster. It's going to be very mana efficient. It's going to affect the beacon targets. You can do that for days and never run out of mana. And when you need that extra healing, you could Holy Shock, get Infusion of Light proc, and put that strong flash of light on someone and save someone's life. You won't be able to rely on that anymore. Now it's going to be very random, which to some extent, a lot of people are saying all of these changes that happen for Paladins, it's almost going the other direction. It's not going towards the positivity, it's going kind of to negative, but a lot of healers are feeling to that extent. And we're hoping that Azeroth traits are going to help push Holy Paladins or other healers in terms of more fun game style. So, Holy Shock crit is very hard to reach. The advantage, gearing might become easier. The disadvantage, Infusion of Light, is going to be very random. The fact that global cooldown, or a lot of the talents have been added, spells have been added to global cooldown, makes the gameplay much slower. If you look at some of the new additions to the talents, Avenging Crusader, which replaces your wings, kind of forces you to go into the melee, which is not a big deal, because as the Holy Paladin, with your mastery, you want to stay beside groups of people, and that usually means staying in melee. Your position as a melee healer is solidified. Sometimes it's not going to work, sometimes it's hard, sometimes the damage patterns are not going to line up with the boss movement and things like that. It is a relatively fun talent. I've checked it out in 5 months and things like that. It is a fun talent to use. Your Crusader Strike, your Judgments are going to heal 3 nearby targets or 3 party targets. It is random, the targets that are being healed. It is affected by beacons. So it is a fun cooldown to use, but again, somewhat situational, and it's nothing new. It's a PvP talent that was existing in Legion. It's just been brought into the PvE bracket or the PvE talent system right now. Also, the fact is that they added a new talent. From all the legendaries that existed in Legion, they chose to go with a topless tower talent. So it's been changed to Awakening. Light of Dawn has a 15% chance to grant your wings for 10 seconds. I mean, there's so many more legendaries that were more fun to use, more viable, that I thought could have been incorporated into the talent system, and they end up going with topless tower. In my eyes, that is a big mistake. I mean, there could have been so many better options to be added there. It's going into the whole RNG, random playstyle of Holy Paladins. Infusion of Light is not guaranteed. Divine Purpose is tier 100, which most likely not going to be picked. We'll have to see. Awakening is completely RNG, or at least it's very random. So all of a sudden, like, to some extent, there's a lot of random talents that are being brought into Holy Paladins. But overall, the whole summary of the video, Beacons is still there, Beacon of Fate is still there, Beacon of Virtue is still there. They're extremely strong. They fit the meta. If you're doing a raid, there's going to be 2 tanks. BFA tank damage seems to be extremely heavy. Tanks take a lot of damage. Having 2 beacons on those targets, having constant healing on those targets is going to be something that's going to be needed no matter what. We have to see what the tuning is going to be like, but Beacon of Fate is extremely strong for raids. The fact is, the Beacon of Fate has been nerfed to some extent. It still feels very strong, or at least it feels the way to go. To the same extent, Beacon of Virtue, which has been unchanged, fits 5-man healing so well. If you use it properly, you can have the whole party. The burst healing that it provides is insane. The cooldown is relatively low. So as long as beacons are there, Holy Paladin spot in raids and 5-mans is kind of, you know, it's still there. It's still there. People want you. People will want the Holy Paladin, and a lot of that comes from beacons. Now, other changes, or a mastery change, Holy Shock change, global cooldown changes, those are some of the more negative things that happen to Holy Paladin. And a lot of people will say that maybe there's more negativity towards Holy Paladin changes than the positive things that happen. But a lot of healers are feeling like that. And we have to, only time will tell how the game style will turn out. But the general consensus is that if you like Holy Paladin in Legion, you most likely will like Holy Paladin in BFA. There isn't that many gameplay changes that happen. Beacons are still there. Beacons are the pillars of Holy Paladin healing. They're one of the things that are going to get you a raid spot or a 5-man dungeon spot. So overall, some of the changes are questionable in my eyes, but I can still see Holy Paladins being viable. Tuning is still happening. Every week there seems to be some changes, so we'll have to keep an eye out on these changes. We'll see whether they're going to be buffed, whether they're going to be changed. We'll see how it turns out, but overall I feel Holy Paladins are still going to have their raid spot. Overall, the changes for me are not overly positive, but I would love to hear your opinion about this. Are you going to main Holy Paladin BFA? What are the most positive changes that you saw for Holy Paladins? What are the most negative changes that you think happened to Paladin healing in BFA? Let me know. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next guide.